G'day, wrestling mates. Welcome to the Southern Joe Wrestling Show once again with your wrestling mate, Southern Joe. So, episode 9. Today is the Potpourri episode. A little bit of everything, sort of. But more on that in a moment. Now, I'm deliberately wearing one of my West Ham United tops. Now, for those who don't know, West Ham United is an English Premier League team in what us Aussies and you Americans call soccer, but everyone else in the world calls football. Now, this is because I'm branching out and, as well as this show, starting a West Ham United show on this channel. I'm doing it because I want to voice my opinion on how our supporter base needs to unify. Yes, I'm a small voice, but all voices need to be heard, and I want to radiate as much positivity as possible. So, in thinking that, I have the same hopes for the wrestling business through this show. Now, last week was my first interview with my newest wrestling mate, Chris Potpourri, the founder of Northern Championship Wrestling, or NCW. This past Sunday, March 9, 2024, NCW had their launch in North Lisbon, Northern New South Wales. As Chris mentioned in an interview, he is going to build things in a sustainable manner. And by all accounts, it seems his launch was a success. Now, here are some photos Chris supplied to me to share with you all, and check out NCW on Facebook and on Instagram. Now, what do I mean by potpourri? Well, being a potpourri as being like a smell, a plant, it's basically my take on the wrestling industry today and also fandom. So it's a bit of everything and what we all comment on the internet. As I said, I want it to be positive. First up, tribalism. You know, once upon a time, most wrestling fans would consume whatever wrestling they could. You know, whatever they could get their hands on. Sure, some folk might have a preference over one company or style over another, depending on what you grew up with. But the negativity of what one didn't boil over to outright toxicity like it does now. The way some WWE fans go onto All Elite Facebook pages just to bag out All Elite, it's mind-blowing. Okay, I don't understand it. Why waste your time trolling people who just want to enjoy their style of wrestling? You know, it would be like someone standing right in front of the TV while you're trying to, play a console game. It's mind-blowing. If you feel you've seen something, pardon me, that you think is subpar, do it in a constructive way. I'd like to think that we should all comment on the good and the bad, but in a way we'd like to hear what good and bad we have done, as if the construction, to us. This leads me to the incident that was circulating social media about the treatment of Maxine Dupree. Now, if WWE has put her into the limelight before she was ready, then that's a bad misstep by the WWE. People pay good money to see top class shows, and it's not great to see someone who is not of the ability of her current peers. So fair enough. If it's like an indie show, you can't expect the world, but not when it's a top flight. It'd be like putting on a singer that's still trying to learn how to hold a tune and putting them onto Broadway. Me, myself, I've stopped booing athletes just because I don't like them. I stopped it a good while ago. This was when my younger son was playing rep basketball. And also when I met some pro athletes in a non-sport setting. Meeting athletes like that makes you realise that they're human, just like you or me, and they've got feelings. They're not just some sort of figure you see on your screen. If on a sporting field an opposition player did something dirty or dastardly, yeah, I'll possibly boo them or let them know that I didn't appreciate it, and maybe I'll do that for the rest of that game, just to let them know I did appreciate what they did. But then for me, the slate is clean next time I see them because it might be a one off. You never know. There's a multi edged sword here. As I said, people are paying top dollar for what is supposed to be the number one promotion in the world, the very tippy top. So they're expecting to see the very tippy top best performance. If they get less than that, and especially if it's by a considerable margin, yeah, they'll voice displeasure, but just do it to the WWE directly. No matter how much, and they'll do that no matter how much they reason with it. People will reason. Now the WWE need to be aware of this and not push someone who is not ready. Normally WWE don't make mistakes like that, but if it's someone who's not ready for the mat work in the public eye, you need to be aware. Now this is an edge for Maxine herself. Now she might have been upset and hurt by the reaction, but I hope she uses this as fuel to better herself in the future. The best revenge would be to come back at some point and be a success and be very, very competent in what she's doing. Now, if she can't make it as an over talent, well, I'm sorry, but some people won't achieve what they really want no matter what. Me, myself, when I was in my 20s, I wanted to be a radio announcer. I really wanted it. I did radio school, and the school I went to was run by one of the greatest broadcasters in Australian broadcasting history, a guy by the name of Max Rowley. And then I sent out tons of audition tapes. I had my own community radio program back in Sydney, the Pleasant Hits program. And I even spent 2 weeks of my holidays seeing radio station managers all over New South Wales, South Australia, Victoria. Covered a big a big area trying to get a gig. I reckon I've got a pretty decent speaking voice. I've got a pretty decent personality and a good attitude. But it was not enough in the end. That's life. I still smile when I see a radio studio, and I hope Maxine and anyone else who is out there trying to achieve their dream, even if that dream ends up being in a community hall in front of 50 or 100 people, if they achieve their dream, good on them. But it's not a guarantee that it will happen, no matter what you say. Now, Sting! Congratulations to Steve Borden. Now, of course, we know him better as Sting. No, not that one. Yes, that one. He just wound up his in-ring career with a pay-per-view match full of twists and turns. But let's discuss the other participants, the other combatants in this tag match he was in, as they've got interesting stories to tell. Now, I'm not really a fan of the Young Bucks. They just don't excite me. They overuse the super kick, which should be a finishing maneuver. I mean, if someone gave you a good swift kick to the mush, you'd pretty much go down. And then there's the leg slapping. I see their appeal to fans of spot monkeys, but not as believable talents in the tippy top. Like if you're ever unfortunate enough to be in a bar fight, do you really want the Bucks as your backup? You probably want someone a bit more like Samoa Joe. But do I believe they are becoming amongst the smartest people in the wrestling business? I believe they are. They have technical difficulty. One moment. They have major detractors especially in Brian Last and Jim Cornette. They also have Jim and Brian have the largest podcast audience, and Cordy still harbours ill will because of the way he perceived the way they were when he dealt with them a few years back. Fair enough. So the case against the Bucks has been prosecuted many times about how the Bucks used their EVP status to insert themselves into main event spots. I believe they're using that. They're leaning into that, and they respond to this and similar criticism by starting to lean into that narrative by being referred to as Nicholas and Matthew. They then fancy up their wardrobe and they lean into a heel persona and make out like they've always been heels. And they lean into their EVP status. This is somewhat clever. There seems to be conjecture about whether Sting wanted the Bucks as his final opponent. Or, if you believe the narrative, maybe Tony Khan or the Bucks coerced him in agreeing to do it. Apart from the fact that Sting was always grateful to Tony Khan for giving him the best send-off for his stellar career, I didn't see a connection between Sting and the Bucks previously. Now, if anyone can let me know what I'm missing as far as connection, make a comment in the comments down below. The fact that Sting and his protege Darby Allin won the tag titles beforehand, with the knowledge that the retirement match was already booked, it made for an interesting wrinkle. Now, this is because there was a lot of talk amongst pundits as to why they won the tag titles and what would happen to the tag titles post Sting career. And would the Bucks still put Sting and Darby over? Yeah, because like many thought that the perceived selfishness of the Bucks meant that they wouldn't hesitate to screw Sting out of his final victory to put themselves over. Many couldn't see the tag titles being vacated. See, because there's an old adage as well. If you're leaving a company, you do the honours and you drop the title that you have on your way out. You don't take the title with you. And I believe that the Bucks, or whoever advised them, made a clever decision to create that extra wrinkle for the retirement match by having the tag titles on the line because of that element of doubt as to, well, would the Bucks send Sting out with a win or would they screw him? Now they're healing by saying they finished Sting's career. Clever, but no, you lost, brother. Now, as for Darby, his incredible spot where he went through the glass, well, why? Now, I know people are pointing to Mick Foley and saying, well, when Foley did what he did with the Hell in the Cell and blah, 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 there's big differences. Difference here is that Foley's spots didn't involve stuff, possibly stuff flying into the audience. It was also part of the storyline, not just a separate thing. Now, I really like Darby. He reminds me of a kid I went to school with who was always amongst the smallest in the class. But he was indestructible. Now, I don't buy this height and weight and build thing as being the only precursor to believing who would win the fight. I've said it quite a few times that if that were true, the Karate Kid movies, they wouldn't have gotten over once, let alone 4 times. Also, the difference between Darby and the Bucks is that Darby's demeanour shows him as someone that, even though he's a little guy, you can't really pick whether you can mess with him or not. If it, in kayfabe. Whereas the Bucks, they don't give off any tough guy vibes. Now, people, prove me wrong in the comments if what I'm saying is wrong. Now, the All Elite attendance. Yeah, some of their house shows and TV tapings are showing smaller numbers than you'd like. But still remember, the company is still 5 years old. Between WrestleMania 1 and WrestleMania 2, the WWF Superstars TV tapings were still being taped in a makeshift studio in front of a couple of hundred people. Now, that was 22 years after the company was founded and 5 years from the time that Vince Jr. bought the company from his dad and wanted to go national. Vince also had the advantage of not having a juggernaut like what the WWE has become today to contend with. Yet people still forget all this and still think All Elite's going nowhere. For all its problems, All Elite still has top stars. They can still draw the odd house. They're still going to be huge at Wembley. I don't believe it'll be as big as last year because you're going to do it first time, but it'll still be big. And I think if All Elite want to grow, they need to make their stars bigger names than what they are now, with stories that people care about, and not be the matches. The work rate will then take care of themselves. Now look at this list, okay? Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Ric Flair, Triple H, John Cena, Sting, the Ultimate Warrior. Now, these are some of the biggest stars in wrestling from the past 4 decades. And that's since wrestling has been more about entertaining than the actual match quality. Now, to me, there is one and one half of that list that stand out as being different. That's Flair and Austin. That's because Flair is the only one that is truly a technical wrestler, while Austin is always halfway there technically. The rest purely relied on their charisma and personas to get over. They were very limited in their in-ring work. There is a lot that All Elite need to fix up, but they've also got a lot going for them. Now, given they're still sustainable, let's really talk about them in 10 years' time and then see how they're traveling. I'm still waiting to hear back from some folk about some interviews. I know they're all busy and so forth. And I've got some exciting news coming in a couple of weeks or so about a very special feature. And also, if anyone would like to sit down for a positive half hour or so Zoom interview, send me an email to bell24joe@gmail.com. The address should be showing just below me. I hope you've enjoyed the improvements I'm making with this program. Please, all feedback is welcome. And to those who have viewed my stuff so far, big thank you. I'll catch up with you next time on the Southern Joe Wrestling Show with your wrestling mate, Southern Joe. Till then, hooroo.